Three corrupt officers high-five in the courthouse hallway, celebrating another case dismissed. Can't touch us, Daniel laughed, mimicking the terrified face of the black man they framed last year. Suddenly, the courtroom doors swung open. A well-dressed man entered, commanding attention. The judge announced, "Meet your new police chief, Jamal Washington." The officers froze. It was the same man they'd wrongfully arrested. Daniel Hayes, Scott Miller, and Jason Bennett weren't just cops. They were predators with badges. For years, they'd terrorized the city's minority neighborhoods, planting evidence, falsifying reports, and brutalizing innocent citizens. Remember that Washington guy? Scott snickered as they left court. The professor who claimed we planted drugs in his car? Professor, my ass! Jason spat. Just another troublemaker who needed to learn respect. What they didn't know was that Jamal Washington wasn't just any professor. He was a former FBI agent with a law degree who'd returned to his hometown to teach criminal justice. 18 months ago, they'd pull him over, found cocaine in his trunk, and laughed as they slammed him against the pavement. "Stop resisting," they'd shouted for the cameras, though he lay perfectly still. The charges were eventually dropped when the officers' stories didn't align, but the damage was done. Jamal's reputation was tarnished, his position at the university questioned. Instead of breaking him, they'd awakened something dangerous: determination. While recovering from his injuries, Jamal had quietly gathered evidence against the trio. Other victims came forward, sharing similar stories. Body cam footage mysteriously lost from police servers appeared in his encrypted inbox from anonymous sources within the department. The mayor, facing re-election and pressure from community activists, needed someone to clean up the corrupt police force. Jamal's background made him perfect, but he'd accepted the position for one reason only: justice. Now, as the new chief of police, Jamal Washington stood before the three men who'd humiliated him, his badge gleaming under the courthouse lights. Their smug smiles vanished as realization dawned. The hunter had become the hunted. The precinct fell silent as Jamal Washington strode through the doors the next morning. Officers straightened their uniforms, eyes darting nervously. Only Daniel, Scott, and Jason maintained their arrogance, lounging against their desks with forced smiles. "Morning, Chief," Daniel called out, the title dripping with mockery. "Nice suit." Jamal didn't acknowledge him. Instead, he addressed the room. "Meeting in 5 minutes. Everyone." The briefing room filled quickly. Jamal stood at the front, his posture military precise. "I've spent the last week reviewing this department's records. What I found was disturbing." He clicked a remote. Crime statistics appeared on the screen: arrests, convictions, complaints. Minority neighborhoods show arrest rates 8 times higher than elsewhere, yet conviction rates are half. Excessive force complaints have tripled in 3 years. His gaze locked on the trio. 3 officers account for 60% of those complaints. Scott leaned toward Jason, whispering, "Same old witch hunt. He's got nothing." "Officer Miller," Jamal called out, "something to share with everyone?" Scott straightened. "Just welcoming you aboard, Chief." "Save it." Jamal's voice cut like steel. "As of today, all officers will wear body cameras that cannot be deactivated during shifts. All footage uploads automatically to secure servers outside department control." Murmurs rippled through the room. "Additionally, I'm implementing a zero-tolerance policy for misconduct. First offense, suspension. Second, termination and criminal charges." Daniel stood up. "With all due respect, sir, we can't do our jobs with these restrictions. If your job requires misconduct, Officer Hayes, you shouldn't be doing it." Jamal motioned to 3 internal affairs officers waiting by the door. "Hayes, Miller, Bennett, my office. Now." Inside, Jamal placed 3 thick folders on his desk. "What's this?" Jason demanded. "Your careers." Jamal opened the first folder. 17 excessive force complaints, 23 illegal searches, 42 instances of racial profiling. "Bullshit allegations?" Daniel scoffed. Nothing stuck. Nothing stuck because you intimidated witnesses, tampered with evidence, and exploited departmental blind spots. Jamal slid forward a document. "You're all suspended effective immediately. Surrender your badges and weapons. Scott slammed his fist on the desk. You can't do this. I just did. Jamal's eyes were cold. And this is just the beginning. As they stormed out, Jamal made a call. It's time. Bring in the witnesses. News of the suspension spread like wildfire. By nightfall, Jamal's office phone wouldn't stop ringing. Chief Washington? Marcus Johnson. You arrested me last year, or rather, they did. The voice trembled. I saw the news. Is it true they're suspended? It's true, Jamal confirmed. Then I need to talk. I'm not the only one. Within days, dozens came forward. A mother whose teenage son was beaten during a routine stop. A store owner who refused to pay protection money. A nurse who witnessed officers planting drugs on an unconscious patient. Meanwhile, Daniel, Scott, and Jason weren't going quietly. He's targeting us because we arrested him, Daniel told reporters outside the precinct. This is personal vengeance, not justice. Their police union lawyer filed complaints. Politicians who benefited from their selective enforcement made calls. The mayor's office was pressured to intervene, but Jamal was methodical. Each witness statement was videotaped, each piece of evidence meticulously cataloged. He brought in state investigators to ensure impartiality. Then came the breakthrough. Chief, a young officer knocked tentatively. I need to show you something. Officer Rivera had been a rookie partner with Jason last year. They made me watch while they beat a handcuffed suspect. Said it was my initiation. He slid a flash drive across the desk. I copied their trophy videos before they could delete them. The footage was damning. The three officers laughing as they planted evidence, bragging about fabricated reports, discussing which neighborhoods to target. That night, Jamal's home security system alerted him to intruders. He found his car window smashed, a note on the windshield, back off or worse. The next morning, he called the three suspended officers to his office. Nice car, Scott smirked. Accident. Jamal slid photos across his desk. Surveillance images of Scott and Daniel vandalizing his car. Intimidation of a law enforcement official. That's a felony. Jamal's voice remained calm. You're not just suspended anymore. You're under arrest. As uniformed officers led them away in handcuffs, Jamal added, and we haven't even gotten to the trophy videos yet. The holding cell door clanged shut. Daniel paced like a caged animal while Scott and Jason sat in stunned silence. This is bullshit, Daniel hissed. We've been through worse. Hours later, they were led to an interrogation room. Jamal waited inside, alone. No lawyers. Scott asked, They're on their way. Jamal replied, I wanted a moment first. To gloat? Jason sneered. To understand. Jamal leaned forward. You had power, respect, good salaries. Why risk it all to terrorize innocent people? Daniel laughed bitterly. You wouldn't understand. Try me? The streets need control, Scott interjected. People need to fear the badge or chaos wins. Fears and respect, Jamal countered. Save the philosophy lecture, Daniel snapped. We all know this is personal. We embarrass you. Now you're getting revenge. Jamal's expression remained neutral. If this were about revenge, I wouldn't have built an airtight case. I'd have planted evidence, like you taught me. He slid a DVD across the table. Your greatest hits collection. Officer Rivera was quite thorough. Jason's face drained of color. Rivera? That little rat. Had a conscience, Jamal finished. Unlike you three. Daniel lunged across the table. But officers rushed in, restraining him. You're dead, Washington. You hear me? Dead. As they dragged Daniel away, Jamal remained seated, unfazed. Your threats are being recorded, he noted calmly, adding witness intimidation to your charges. Scott, suddenly deflated, asked, What happens now? Now, you face justice. The same justice you denied others. As they were let out, Jamal added, One more thing. Remember that night you arrested me? You missed a security camera across the street. I've had that footage for 18 months, just waiting for the right moment. Their faces fell as realization dawned. The game had been rigged from the start, but not by them, by justice itself. The courthouse buzzed with tension. Every seat was filled. Community members, reporters, police officers divided in their loyalties. The trial of Daniel Hayes, Scott Miller, and Jason Bennett had become the city's most watched event in decades. The prosecutor, a seasoned state attorney brought in to avoid claims of bias, approached the jury. What you'll see in this trial isn't just about 3 corrupt officers. It's about a system that protected them, a system that failed its citizens. Evidence mounted daily. Body camera footage showing excessive force. Audio recordings of racist comments. Financial records revealing unexplained deposits coinciding with drug busts where evidence went missing. Most damning were the videos from Officer Rivera, the officer's own recordings of their misdeeds, kept as trophies and blackmail insurance against each other. We called it making the numbers, Rivera testified, voice shaking. They had quotas for arrests in certain neighborhoods. If they couldn't find crimes, they created them. The defense tried everything. Character assassination of witnesses, claims of evidence tampering, accusations that Chief Washington had orchestrated a vendetta. Their star witness was a former police chief who insisted the department had a few bad apples, not systemic problems. Under cross-examination, he crumbled. Did you review Officer Hayes' body camera footage from the Johnson arrest? The prosecutor asked. There was no footage. Camera malfunction. The prosecutor played the video, clearly showing Daniel planting evidence. This malfunctioning footage was found in a private folder on your department server. Did you lie then, or are you lying now? On the trial's 10th day, Jamal took the stand. He described his own arrest, the humiliation, the fear. I wasn't their first victim, he testified, but I was determined to be their last. The defense attorney pounced. This is personal for you, isn't it, Chief Washington? You're using your position to settle a score. Jamal's gaze never wavered. Justice isn't personal. It's universal. These officers betrayed their badges, their community, and the law itself. The jury deliberated for just 4 hours. On all counts, we find defendants guilty. The courtroom erupted, some in tears, others in applause. The 3 former officers sat motionless. Their world collapsed. 6 months later, Jamal Washington stood before a packed community center. The same room where, years earlier, residents had gathered to complain about police harassment. Complaints that fell on deaf ears. Today marks a new chapter, Jamal announced. The 3 officers who terrorized our community will serve between 15 and 20 years in prison. But their conviction was just the beginning. The department had transformed. New training protocols, civilian oversight boards, recruitment focused on community members, body cameras that couldn't be disabled. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight, Jamal acknowledged. It's earned daily through actions, not words. A woman raised her hand, the mother whose son had been beaten. My boy used to hide when police cars drove by. Yesterday, he told me he wants to be an officer like you. Applause filled the room. Outside, news crews captured the moment. The city's story had gone national, a blueprint for police reform across the country. What would you say to others facing corrupt systems? A reporter asked. Jamal considered the question. Justice may be delayed, but with persistence and courage, it cannot be denied. The path forward requires all of us speaking up, standing firm, and believing change is possible. He smiled. If my story inspires you, share it. If you've experienced injustice, comment below. And if you believe in accountability, subscribe to see more communities transformed. Together, we can ensure no badge is above the law.